Welcome to an episode of the Anyone But Cam Fantasy Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts and one of your commissioners. My name is Frankie, and sitting across the internet from me is Cam. Cam, how are you doing on this lovely Thursday evening? About 10 minutes before Thursday Night Football kicks off.
We're back, baby. They thought that they missed us, and they were right. But not missing us anymore, because here we are.
We are back, and we are better than ever. My sincerest apologies for missing this last several weeks. But enough about that. We're moving on. We're here, and that's all that matters. All right. So Cam and I were talking in the pre-show, and we decided that instead of doing like a recap over the past like 3 or however many weeks it's been, we just kind of want to give a state of the league address and talk about the playoff picture. And what we're looking at here as we look into week 11. I believe it's what is it, the last week before we get back into divisional play once again
Oh
to
yeah.
finish off the season. So exciting stuff. So we'll start just talking about the playoff picture as it stands today on the 17th of November. Then we will talk about anything in the waivers or that happened today, the last day that we are interested in. And then we'll talk about the games that will be for this week. How's that sound to you, Cam?
I'm excited. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, Cam. So I should have probably dropped this picture to you in the pre-show, but I'll just read it out. So I updated the playoff picture thing that I do pretty much every year, um, and have it all laid out here. So what our current standings are. So currently atop the league would be yours truly at 8-2, top of the Studs and Zoners division. The next not league leader, division leader will be Cam, of course, 7-3, ahead of Studs and the Alphas, I mean, and then Greg at the top of Rotlack at a measly 5-5. Who
Poor
are
Greg.
all our division leaders at this point. They are also the three teams with the highest points for on the season. So even though Greg's record doesn't necessarily reflect that, he is the third highest scoring team on the year so far. So seems like a worthy placement for him. In the wild card, we're looking at Lassie at 7-3, Devin at 7-3, and then Logan, who had that hot start at the beginning of the season and then had a bit of a slide, but is looking to bounce back here at the end at 6-4. These are all the teams in our league with winning records, plus Greg at an even record there, and almost all of our top six scorers. We're just missing one team from that list, which we'll get to in a moment. But that is the current landscape if the playoffs were to start today, which makes sense. This seems like mostly the best teams in the league, besides for one name, and I think we're thinking of the same name.
Is that Mr. JP?
Of course, it's JP.
Yeah.
Uh, the constellation is looking like I'll just run it down real quick. Dylan at the top 5-5, JP, then Jake, then NB Daniel, then Justin and Tyler rounding at the bottom at 2-8. Their playoff chances are not dead in the water. They just need to win out and have other
I
top teams lose out.
I think it's just about locked out at
I
this
mean,
point.
we're definitely sticking a fork in them. That's for sure. But I mean, I think statistically there is a chance, but like it's incredibly unlikely. Um, so there's that. Of course, JP, who is currently the fourth highest scoring team in the league on the season so far, is currently in eighth place in terms of our ranking system with his record. Which really just means that JP needs to start stacking wins. There's only four more games in the regular season. And he's currently 2 games out of playoff contention. So he really needs to probably win out at minimum, go 3-1, and get a points for tiebreaker. I don't think 2-2 is going to cut it. So he's got to start winning soon. And then Dylan, a team that's been on the rise recently, also has a chance, only being 1 game out here. Also has the opposite of Logan, a very slow start for Dylan, and then has really jumped up recently. So some interesting stuff there. I guess Jake Logan also has a chance as well. I'm not really counting on him too much. I might squeak in as a sixth spot, but I wouldn't count on it. And then Envy, Daniel, Justin, and Tyler. I think you could just stick a fork in all of them.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to note is our division winners are decided by head-to-head record. If they have the same record overall, it's not
Right.
a point total points for. In week one, Greg took Dylan down by a whopping 44 points. So Dylan's got to either get a really good win on Greg when they play in second round of division play, or he's got to get a full game ahead. So Greg's looking pretty safe right now, as long as he can avoid that.
It's a really good point, and Cam, I will not lie, I completely forgot that was our tiebreaker, but I do love that tiebreaker
Uh-huh.
rule. So I completely forgot about that, but I'm very excited about it. That's a great point. So we'll talk more about that every week after this week going forward, talking about the implications for playoffs with the divisional play. Any other thoughts about the current landscape or risers, fallers, or anything like that?
I guess on the same vein of the points or head-to-head points, I also beat Devin. I don't remember exactly how much. I just remember smacking him down. So we currently also have the same record. So Devin's got to get a game ahead or a pretty solid win against me. And besides that, if I had to pick a team that's currently not in playoffs that's most likely to make it, I feel like. Wait, is Dylan in playoffs? Dylan's not in playoffs. All right, yeah.
Dylan's top of consolation at 5-5.
Yeah, it's pretty tight between Dylan and JP just because I do like JP's team more. But Dylan's been hot. But he's going to lose this week, so it's JP. Who am I kidding?
Yeah, I mean, I think the smart, I mean, this like the money, like the statistics pick probably says that Dylan's the best bet just because he has an easier division to win.
Mm-hmm.
He could take that over Greg. I think JP's team is probably overall a bit better. But yeah, either one could definitely see it, and I think that's those are good points all around. Yeah, and that was the state of the league. Let's go ahead and move forward. Nothing really that interesting on the waiver wire this week, besides for, I mean, an absolute I don't even know what to call this. Like it's like you hit the jackpot in like the Wheel of Fortune like arcade game, and then you just decided to drop it all on like one prize, and that was what uh, Logan did by dropping $101 on Christian Watson, who's being built up as a bit of a potential league winner. And Logan has admitted recently that after taking a couple weeks off of paying a lot of attention to fantasy, he feels like he's right back in the fold of it. So going for that huge play there to try and secure a potential really strong asset for his team, and he also had like a ton of a waiver fab to burn anyways. So it really, I mean, even with that, he still has some of the most in the entire league. So that was the big thing. Nothing really else too crazy going on. Any other notes from you, Cam?
Yeah, I was gonna on the note of Logan's fab. He spent $101 a fab to get Christian Watson. He still has $107 a fab. We start with 200. Uh, so yeah, this is his second bid of the season that actually spent money. His first was Tyler Conklin on September 21st. So when you got it, might as well spend it. I'm not tilting that I was the second highest at 37, but
Yeah.
Uh, another note that I really wanted to point out, Jake Logan dropped Noah Brown, and I would just like to shout out that on oh god, can I see history on the browser version? I can't. All right. Uh, Sometime in September, right after week two, Jake Logan dropped $69 a fab for Noah Brown. He proceeded in the next 10 weeks, 8 weeks, to never score greater than 7.9 points. So Jake Logan has a tremendous line of bad transactions this season, and it's good to know that it didn't just start recently. It's been going on basically the whole season.
Moving on. Let's go ahead and talk about the games for this week. Cam, is there anyone that sticks out to you specifically? I definitely have my eye on one. I mentioned it a little bit in the pre-show. Devin versus Lassie. Is there anything else you're chomping at the bit to talk about, or we can just jump right into that one?
I think that's a great first matchup. There are a good amount here. I do like Devin
Mm-hmm.
versus Lassie, both 7-3. Greg versus Logan, both fringe playoff teams, has a lot of leverage on it. Myself versus Dylan, Dylan's fighting for his life, but I feel like Devin versus Lassie is the most weighty. So let's go with that.
Yeah, a lot of great ones. So, this is what we're talking about. These are two teams that have performed well this season, but have gotten a little bit lucky in terms of their record wise. And here comes, you can't. There's no hiding anymore. They're against each other. So we have Devin here versus Lassie. Devin, who currently looks like he isn't fully made his decisions yet for his flex position. I don't. Let's see his good options. He lost Dallas Goddard. He has Dubs, who isn't going to play. Tyreek Hill's on bye, so currently he doesn't have a lot of options considering he's already has James Conner in his flex. He's going to need to pick up a receiver or a tight end or something to play because it's not looking great there. His other options, he starting Darius Slayton, who had a really strong game last week, looking to build on that against Detroit. Claypool, who hasn't really emerged in any kind of real role with Chicago yet. Foster Moreau, who could be a really interesting asset in the wake of losing Darren Waller. Kirk Cousins, we're going against a really stout Dallas defense this week. So I'm not loving it a ton, but it's not terrible either. Of course, Josh Jacobs has been awesome all season. Will probably continue to be awesome even against the Denver Broncos. But yeah, and then on the Lassie side, starting Mariota, which thoughts and prayers for starting Mariota in the year of our Lord 2022. D'Onta Foreman, who's been excellent so far, goes up against a little bit of a tougher Ravens defense. Mixon versus Pittsburgh should be a good matchup, although the Steelers defense does do a lot better when they have TJ Watt back in the lineup, as they will this week. So look out for that. And then he has let's see who else he's got. He's got Pacheco, who's become, I guess, the running back one for Kansas City officially now. Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's emerged a bit. Juwan Johnson. So I'm not seeing a lot of stars here, Cam. Of course you got your Josh Jacobs and your Joe Mixon, but not a lot of other players here who have really performed extremely well this season in terms of the wide receivers or even the tight ends here. So and the quarterbacks as well. So I'm interested to see where this goes, and it's looking like a lower scoring affair just based off projections, and I think it's probably a fair way to look at it.
Yeah, honestly, cracking this matchup up, it's shocking that this is the heavyweight bout that we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Given, we're out here starting Michael Gallup, who, since coming back, has scored no more than 6.9 nice points. And then Devin's starting Chase Claypool. Oh my goodness. I get that Lenny Fournette, Mike Evans, and Tyreek Hill are on bye for these guys, but this is just more luck for whoever ends up winning this game of just, playing crippled teams.
I think that's kind of the point we're getting at here with this team, with this matchup. This should be a high-powered matchup, and I get there's buys and injuries, and that's going to happen for any team. But I think most teams have gone through big buys, and the best teams in this league have still put up good points. So show me something, guys. I want to see a big performance from one of y'all. Show me that you should be a playoff contender that we should be worrying about.
Yeah, and either of these teams, even if they take a loss, still probably in good shape, but you don't want to get cold going into the second round of division play.
Absolutely
that's
not.
what they're really fighting for.
Alrighty, moving on here. I think the next good one will be Logan versus Greg. Greg, who already has some points racking up for him with Derrick Henry as we speak, which is great for him. And then we'll just start on the Greg side then. He's got his locked and loaded guys. He's got his Derrick Henry. He's got, David Montgomery, who is not locked and loaded by any means, but he'll get you up 5 points at least. Mahomes, Olave, who's been great, Higbee, and he's got Cordero back, who I know had a tough week last week, but I think could rebound a little bit. DeAndre Carter, who's pretty hit or miss, and Yeah, so I mean, good stuff on Greg's side. We hope to see AJ Brown catch the football this week as well, against the Colts. So I think if his normal players produce as usual, Greg shall have a fine week as he typically does. And then on the Logan side here, he has Lamar Jackson versus Carolina Panthers. Should be an excellent matchup. Kamara versus the Rams. Should be an excellent matchup. Um, and Tyler McLaurin versus Houston should be an excellent matchup. So a lot of good stuff. He is still starting Garrett Wilson and Drake London. Has Drake London done anything? Oh, he got a touchdown last week. Good job, Drake London. That stops his skid of 6 games in a row of scoring like less than 6 points or something like that.
Yeah, dude,
So
Logan dropped $101 a fab on Christian Watson and decided not to start him against Tennessee's worst in the league, almost secondary against wide receivers. So see how
yeah,
that goes.
I think he's hoping that that Mike Williams can come back and he can
Yeah,
insert
that'd be
him
pretty
back into
good.
the lineup. Maybe even DeAndre Swift in the place of Michael Carter. Although Michael Carter has been more than usable, and DeAndre Swift has been on a pitch count since like week 1, so hard to really justify that as well. But yeah, so I feel like this stuff just looks good like matchup wise on the Logan side here, but I don't love the players, especially when you get to his flex and even his tight end. It gets when the farther you scroll down his roster, it gets a lot worse really fast. So I mean, I think Greg definitely has the more locked and loaded starters, and so I'm probably looking for Greg to pull this one out. But I would no surprises either way.
Yeah, my only real fear for Greg is if Mike Williams and Keenan Allen also practice this week are back.
Mm,
Greg's current second flex is DeAndre Carter, the Chargers wide receiver, and he doesn't really have a solid replacement there. Like, I don't think he wants to start Jarvis Landry and Chris Olave against the Rams,
right.
and that's like Mark Andrews probably gonna be injured. I guess he could flex Cole Kmet if he wanted to, or Latavius Murray. Honestly, kicker flex probably the way to go. Robbie Gould playing Monday night. We always love bringing a matchup down to a Monday night kicker.
That we do. That we do. Alrighty. I think the next biggest matchup of the week is probably yours versus Dylan. Um,
Yeah,
you
boy.
who, Dylan, we mentioned earlier, has been surging as of late. Your team is staying strong as well, even getting better as Justin Fields continues to light up the world, and Jonathan Taylor continues to get healthier. And get more opportunity now with a more stable offense now that Jeff Saturday has taken over. Um, so starting on your side then, Damian Pierce locked and loaded, Saquon locked and loaded, Saquon versus Amon Ra on your own roster, which will be fun. Um, Gabe Davis, who I think did really well last week, right? Yeah, 93 yards
He's
and a
pretty solid.
touchdown. Yeah, I mean for him, I mean he's about as boomer bust as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you are still starting Kyle Pitts, who is I mean he's currently the tight end 16 in standard and 20 in PPR. And I missed a game in there. Not great.
Yeah, but Frankie, he got 8 targets last week. I say to myself over and over as I fall asleep.
Yeah. It's not like you have a ton of better options. I mean, yeah, I mean you definitely don't. I mean Taysom Hill is in fact the tight end 2 on the season cam, so I don't see why you don't just play him instead.
Because the last 2 weeks he scored 1.1 points and zero point 0.1 points.
Oh yeah. Well, anyways, if Justin Fields continues to perform as he has, which we don't expect to do like anything like last week, but still, if he's still scoring in the mid to high 20s or even like the low 30s, like that's a league winner right there. So, really great stuff on your side. The only gaps really are Pitts and potentially Gabe Davis as well, as Lazard's been pretty solid for you as well. So, and you
We
got a
will
good streaming
miss Cooper
defense.
Cup.
Yeah, of course. But even then, I'm saying like, yeah, there's definitely like you can tell that the roster's not as good as it was, but it's still not bad by any means. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 a loss, but not detrimental necessarily.
Shout out
Um,
Justin Fields.
yeah,
That's all I
shout out
have
for
to say.
this. Speaking of quarterbacks that wear orange and blue, Dylan is starting Russell Wilson against you. He already made a meme about it, so we can't talk anymore about it. He's already owned himself, so that's good at least. His running backs are Darrell Henderson and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, who's been about as up or down if you look at his scorecards for fantasy this year: 9 points, 30 points, 4 points, 13 points, 9 points, 5 points, 24. It's like as most up and down you can possibly imagine. Um, Thielen and Devontae as his receivers, with Cortland going for that Russell to Cortland stack. Ayuk versus Arizona in an NFC West primetime game. Always some weird stuff going on. Also, so that's something to monitor at least. So I've been trying to tell myself that I think that Dylan's performances over the past several weeks are been more outlier than they have been repeatable. Um, and maybe a part of that is because I just don't want to accept that Dylan's team has gotten better. And it is better when you have players like Travis Etienne in the lineup, and Geno Smith, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think you're up for a tough matchup this week, Cam, and I don't think we would have expected that after like 3 or 4 weeks going into the season. So props to Dylan for that. I still definitely like your side a little bit more, but I'm down to see Dylan win.
I'm not. I'm not for that at all. Shout out Greg. We're gonna get you to the playoffs, baby. I do think it's pretty interesting. Dylan has got Aaron Jones against Tennessee, who's an excellent run defense. Devontae Adams versus Denver, who's an excellent pass defense. Mm-hmm. Adam Thielen versus Dallas, who's a really good defense. And then all those other players are bad, so it doesn't really matter who they're playing against. But I kind of feel like if I were him, I'd be starting Tyler Boyd against Pittsburgh. Is their secondary still beat up?
It's gotten healthier. The only problem really right now is that Minka had appendicitis. So so yeah. Other than that, they're mostly healthy at this point.
Yeah, I mean Tyler Boyd's been solid and he's pretty good at getting long touchdowns when he needs them. So especially with Dylan here being in a bit of a underdog situation, I don't think that's a bad call.
Yeah, not at all. All right. What's next? I've been so tempted to talk about this game, Cam, and I can't wait any longer. Tyler versus Justin.
No.
The 2-8 Bowl. And Cam, I know that Tyler's a busy man. His entire life professionally is all about around football. He has Aaron Rodgers on his roster, and he has Trevor Lawrence as his other quarterback. Lawrence is on a bye. His only other player on his roster is Aaron Rodgers, and he's not starting him as his quarterback. So what's he doing?
The game already started, so
it already started.
Switch him in.
He must have just forgot. There's no other really explanation for that. But that's unfortunate. Our boy Justin could use some luck anyways. Speaking of Jaguars being out, it's going to take Marvin Jones out and Evan Ingram out. Tyler with so much exposure to his own team. Something about mixing pleasure and business or shitting where you're eating. I don't know, something like that. But there's definitely a lot of shit eating. No offense. On the brighter side, I'm sorry. He doesn't listen to this anyways, so it's fine. On the brighter side, Antonio Gibson versus Houston should be a good matchup. Chubb versus Buffalo. Well, I guess it's not. I was going to say it's going to be an interesting one, but they're playing in Detroit now, so it's not as interesting anymore. And then Curtis Samuel versus Houston, who actually is the wide receiver 19 of the season, which I'm kind of surprised by. But a decent enough play there. Akers a terrible play, but he's running out of options quickly. With Chuba not even being close to the not even like barely, like you can't even call it like a shared backfield because Deontay Foreman's taken over so much, and then James Robinson would have to play New England this week, so it looks like poop on Tyler's side, regardless of the Aaron Rodgers play. On Justin's side, as we say, at least I feel like I say every week, he's got Josh Allen, he's got Devonta Smith, he's got Nuke Hopkins, he's got Miles Sanders, who's been great this season compared to what we thought. He has the assets. They just need to perform. And at this point, Tyler isn't starting at quarterback, so this is a pretty easy win prediction for our boy Justin.
Oh yeah, even if Tyler sets his lineup, I feel solid for Justin.
Yeah. Once Justin puts in Dulcich into his tight end, it's gonna be it's gonna have one of the highest projections of the week.
Good for you, Justin. Finally
Yeah.
turn it around. 4 weeks left in the regular season.
Yeah. Okay. Um, let's see. I think we talked about him a lot already this episode, and we're gonna finish off talking about him here today with this bit: JP versus Envy Daniel. Envy Daniel, who do not have much of a shot at making playoffs at this point. They are, I mean, I shouldn't say that because their division sucks. So they very much
Yeah.
still can win. Their division sucks record-wise, at least. So they very much can win. I mean, they still have more points for on the season than Dylan, although it's their points were forward very much in the early part of the season than Dylan does now. But they're not out of it. The problem is the running backs are terrible. AJ Dillon and CEH, I've talked enough about this week. And their only other running back on their roster, I think, is Naeem Hines, which is it's just terrible. It feels bad.
Oh,
It feels bad. They in terms of their receivers, they have Pittman, who's been bad, but he's been probably it's definitely an arrow up with Matt Ryan back. So there's that at least. They have Justin Jefferson, of course, who's like the best receiver in the league, and then Lockett's on bye. So their next best player is Jacoby Myers then, and then Nico Collins, who are both fine spot starts, I guess, but not what you're looking for when you're really trying to put together a win that you really need here. So yeah, not great, not great. On the JP side, of course, as always with this Charger stack, Pollard, is probably a decent enough flex play this week. As my running back two, I don't love the play, but that's how it goes. He's dealing with a good amount of buys this week. I guess just really just DK and I guess then Julio as well, but nothing really with his running backs. Stretching Tyler Algier. Oh, because Cordell's back. That's right. Yeah. So running backs aren't his running back two, and then beyond isn't great either. But at least he has a running back one, which is one thing you can say for Envy Daniel.
yeah.
Devin Duvernay, and then Amari Cooper, who's actually secretly been playing actually really well this season. He's the wide receiver 14 in PPR formats. He's been pretty solid. So that's a decent enough start there. NVS is fine if with Juju potentially out and stuff like that. So decent enough plays on his side. It's definitely looking stronger for JP. I don't think there's really much of a question there. But crazier things can happen. AJ Dillon could be a goal line siphon and get some touchdowns. Michael Pittman could go off randomly with Ryan back. I'm grasping at straws here.
Yeah, I mean, when Envy and Daniel have the same amount of quarterbacks on their team as they do running backs, it's a non-serious operation. We can move on.
Oh no, that's a kind of a good point though. All right, I think this is the last game, right? It'll be mine
Yep.
versus Jake, which I didn't mean to bury the lead by any means. It's not maybe one of the top two or three matchups this week, but it doesn't deserve the bottom. That's definitely Tyler Justin. I just couldn't help myself. So as you mentioned, Jake is on the outside looking in terms of playoff contention. He has two less wins than Logan does, and he's scored 1 point less than him on the season. So it's definitely not out of it by any means. He has a tough division, but that wild card spot is definitely open for him. Jake and I have had a history this season so far.
Put it lightly.
There's been some I wouldn't say swindling, but some very odd trades. He started calling me Mickey Mouse for a while there. Didn't really stick, but it's it gave me a chuckle at least. But he has McCaffrey on his side, and in terms of what else he got for me, he's got Chris Godwin on bye, so that's cool for him, I guess. Kyler Murray against a pretty stout SF defense. But you never know what happens. If Hollywood Browns is back this week, that whole operation could be up back and running. Speaking of up back and running, that could be Zeke running all the way to a middling 3.5 yards per carry or so. CMC, of course, will be interesting to watch. CMC versus Kyler Murray. Kadarius Toney, who huge error up this week with all the injuries in Kansas City. Darnell Mooney, who's been doing fine. And then looks like his other starts are Gus Edwards. Is Gus Edwards the starting running back for the Ravens right now? Is that correct?
I don't think anyone really knows.
Okay. I feel like I'm pretty in the know, but sometimes I have blind spots and I'm like, I have no idea who the starting running back for the Ravens is. Okay. And then Josh Palmer, who's pretty hit or miss. So,
Especially if
decent
the
stuff.
people for Kansas or the Chargers come back, the other wide receivers.
Right, exactly. So a lot of things in the balance. Hollywood coming back for Kyler. Kyler even coming back. He limited practice today. I'm sure he'll play, but in what capacity? It's a Monday night game, so have an extra day of rest. Zeke comes back, but in what capacity? So, not a lot of great stuff. Not a lot of home runs, at least on Jake's side. Solid plays, not a lot of home runs necessarily, besides for McCaffrey. On my side, I'm looking for home runs from Jalen Hurts, and then my receiving core, of course, with Diggs and Higgins against Pittsburgh. I'm looking for just middling production from Dalvin Cook, because that's all I can really expect from this guy. And then Ramondre Stevenson's been awesome this season, so I hope to continue his streak. Hope he continues to hold the lion's share of the backfield attention against a much more stout Jets defense than the Patriots are used to. Hawkinson has emerged in his first couple of games with Minnesota, and in so much that a tight end off the waiver wire can emerge for any one team. And then I got Debo back in my lineup, so we'll have that Debo versus McCaffrey production to watch. I have Jalen Waddle and Kenneth Walker on bye, which feels bad, man. But overall, I'm definitely liking my side stronger than Jake's, especially with all the question marks going on his side. But how do you see the matchup?
Yeah, excellent 5D chess from Jake, making sure that the players he gave you were on bye the one week he plays you.
It's a good point.
Uh, yeah, I mean, Darnell Mooney and Kadarius Toney are capable of getting long
Right,
touchdowns, and that's basically his only path to success. That and Christian McCaffrey going off.
right. Yeah, he just hopes that it becomes a. I feel like the path to success is that, and then McCaffrey getting a lot of work and Debo not getting a lot of work in
Mm-hmm.
that San Francisco offense. So it can happen. It can definitely happen. But I really do like my side this week. Okay, I think that's about everything, and we should be good to go. So Bagel, my lovely rabbit is right next to me. She's chewing on my Ethernet cable.
As we speak, your Wi-Fi is dying. Good to know.
Alrighty, thank you all for listening to episode of the Annual McCam Fantasy Football Podcast. I have been Frankie,
And I'm going to take Dylan down, and Devin, you're not getting the alphas from me, dog.
and we will see about that and see all of you on the next one.
Peace.